Seduction depends on the fact that people lack something in their life. Women have much more to lose in a seduction than the man. Seduction involves a little bit of mystery, a little bit of fantasy. It's not like everyday life. You will always find something that people are missing. Nobody is completely happy. The trick in seduction, of male or female seduction, in a kind of a cold seduction, where you're looking at a victim who's got vulnerabilities and insecurities that you can take advantage of. Now, that's not the kind of seduction I'm trying to promote in the book, but as you say, I'm revealing the secrets that a lot of men use. And there are men out there who have a radar for picking on women who have just the right kind of insecurities, just the right kind of vulnerabilities that they can prey upon. And for them, that would make the perfect victim. Seduction depends on the fact that people lack something in their life, right? And you are going to be the one supplying them. They're missing something, okay? The word for love, eros and the erotic, comes from the god who shoots an arrow into someone and wounds them and poisons them, right? So falling in love and seducing is creating a wound in the other person. They need you. You're going to fill what they can't get on their own. So somebody who is completely happy in their life, who's got everything they want, is very hard to seduce. Now, if you're a great seducer, a top-level seducer, you will always find something that people are missing. Nobody is completely happy. Even the very happiest person actually is probably covering up something. And so you'll be able to find that. But the woman who reveals that she's unhappy, that she's got vulnerabilities, that she's been wounded before, and there's something missing in her life, that's like, whew, I can ride right through that. I can be the one to supply. I can be the one to make her happy. They're much easier to seduce. So the trick in seduction, of male or female seduction, is when you're not there, the other person is thinking about you. That is when you've succeeded. That is the game that you're trying to play. Because when you're there, they're seeing you and things are going on, they're thinking about you. But when you're absent and they're thinking about you, then you've gotten under their skin. If you're not there and they're not thinking about you, then your seduction isn't working, right? So the whole point is to create a fantasy in which they're going, One of the things I talk about is creating mixed signals, like people seem to be good, but they also show a little bit of an evil sign. And so the woman is thinking, who is this man? Do I really know him? What is he really about? I'm intrigued. And he's sort of touched on certain fantasy and points, and her imagination now takes over. She starts thinking about him. She starts imagining him as if he could be playing one of these great archetypes of the male seducer, right? He could be the rescuer. He could be the hero. And so because she has an imagination, a vivid imagination, she's enveloping him in all of these fantasies from her point of view. And so if the male seducer knows how to feed a little bit her imagination so that when he's not there, she starts enveloping him in this. There's the great writer Stendhal, the French writer who wrote a book on love. He compared it to these limbs of trees that have been dropped into this mine, this crystal mine in Germany. And when they pull them out, they're full of crystals. And he calls falling in love this crystallization method, where in your mind, crystals are forming, where you're imagining this person is fantastic and has all these fantasy elements. Well, if the woman has no imagination, is so matter of fact and so businesslike, you could do all of the tactics in the art of seduction and she won't be thinking about you. She won't be enveloping you in these fantasies. If you're a male seducer, you know how to create that fantasy by having a picture of holding a little cat. Oh, he's so sensitive and wonderful, or a dog, and creating this kind of image that's going to feed women's imagination. She's hooked. He's got the little hook in her. He can take her wherever he wants. So using that and being very clever with how you present yourself with the image and the words that go with it, you can feed that imagination factor. So when a man's trying to seduce a woman, there's a wariness. Women have much more to lose in a seduction than the man, right? Men, they'll sleep with anybody practically, right? We all know that. A woman has much more to lose in that process. So women are wary, right? And so you have to overcome their wariness. You have to create some trust. And if you're an honest seducer, you're creating honest trust. But if you're a dishonest seducer, you're creating a false sense of trust. And one of the strategies that I talk about is you become their friend. And when you're their friend, and this is a longer seduction, this will take several months because you can't do it in a couple of days. When you become their friend, you don't seem so threatening. The trust element comes into play, right? You see them as someone who genuinely likes, for a man who wants to be their friend. Well, on one hand, it might be insulting that he doesn't see me as attractive, but on the other hand, he wants to be my friend, and it's very kind of flattering. Well, you get that friendship going, and then you inject something else. You start bringing in some of that sexual element, some of that erotic element, and the trust element that has been established makes it very difficult for she becomes very confused, and because she's been emotionally connected as a friend, it's like a bridge to creating a connection sexually. So starting off by lowering their wariness of you, their suspicion, by trying to be their friend means, he's not just interested in sex, but he might be just interested in sex, but he's using this tactic to kind of lower your suspicions about him. The way to see through that tactic is this attempted friendship genuine or not? And that's a tricky question, right? But that opens up the whole thing about being much more sensitive to the nonverbal cues that you pick up from a person. Because what often happens with women is that they sense something is wrong with the man from the first time they meet him. But then they drop the suspicion very quickly. They think, he's not so bad, or I had it all wrong. But actually that first instinct was very right. So you have to trust your instincts, and you have to trust that this person that is trying to become your friend, they're giving off signs that there's something kind of cold about it. It doesn't feel genuine. It feels like a tactic. One thing that a man will do if he's using this kind of tactic is he's in a bit of a hurry, right? Because, Jesus Christ, I don't have 6 months to become friends with this woman. I want to sleep with her tomorrow, right? So he's in a bit of a hurry. So his effort to be a friend is kind of rushed. He really likes you, right? But he's texting you, he's talking about you, asking you questions and all these other things. But it seems kind of rushed. In a period of like a week or so, he's suddenly your friend now. That is a sure sign that something else is going on. Because if you genuinely want to be a friend of someone, you're willing to take your time, right? The calculating seducer is probably after sex fairly quickly, right? Or an abusive relationship. So they're not willing to take their time in that area. But also, as I said, people who are narcissists, you can kind of pick up the signs in them. So they're asking you questions, but they don't seem genuinely interested. There's a kind of coldness in their eyes. I say the classic nonverbal cue of a narcissist is there's a disconnect between their eyes and their mouth. So they smile. Oh, yes, that's so interesting, Lisa, yeah. But the eyes are dead. Their eyes are not. When someone's genuinely interested, the whole face lights up. You can't fake that. But what you can fake is a kind of a smile, but the eyes reveal. So there are signs that the narcissist isn't really emotionally involved. But the problem with a lot of women in this situation is they're not attentive. They're thinking about themselves. They're projecting onto the man images from their childhood, their father figures, previous men who've hurt them. They're not in the moment. They're not reading the fine-grained, nonverbal cues that the other person is getting. They're thinking about their problems, their history, their fantasies. But you have to be in the moment. You have to look at them and see if that interest that they're showing to be your friend is actually genuine or not. And the face will often reveal that. In the past, before the internet, when people were more social, and women were a little bit warier than they are now about men, right? Because becoming pregnant outside of marriage was a huge deal. They had that instinct, and it was very, very strong. A woman could pick up the signals of a cold seducer pretty quickly, but that skill has been degraded in the modern era, right? And so when you're spending so much of your time on your phone and you're judging people, they're the virtual thing, you're losing the sense of how to look at somebody in the moment and feel. And it's not just this thing I told you about the eyes. Some of it I can't even communicate in words. It's that gut feeling that something isn't right about this person. Something is disconnected. I can't say exactly what it is, but it's giving me a feeling that he is not who he pretends to be. There's a fine line between that and paranoia, where you're doing that to every man. Because if you become like that, then you can never have a good relationship. You can never let down your guard. So that you can go too far with that. But you should have, in the initial stages of a relationship, a woman should have a little bit of suspicion, a little bit of wariness. That has to come down. He has to earn your trust. It can't just be this instant thing that happens. Very powerful seduction technique. It preys on a very elemental part of human psychology. It's something that I don't think people are so good at anymore. The person is a puzzle. And the problem today, and people are so obvious, they're so goddamn obvious. They're on the internet, they're saying, here's what I have for breakfast, here's what I love. You know, I'm just opening myself up and this is who I am, right? But seduction involves a little bit of mystery, a little bit of fantasy. It's not like everyday life. It's not like things on Instagram. It's something different. It's theater. That's what's exciting about it, okay? So if you're the male seducer, he will be someone who seems very trustworthy, very honest, very solid. He got an MBA, he's working for Goldman Sachs. But then he reveals something a little bit rock and roll, a little bit rebellious, a little bit like he takes something else about him that doesn't quite click. Wow, I didn't know who this guy is. Maybe he's more interesting than I thought. Maybe he's not so buttoned up and so controlled as I thought. There's another aspect to him. The element of surprise that you don't know who someone is what fascinates us about a movie. When you create a character and suddenly on screen they reveal a trait that seems out of character. Wow, that's exciting. That's what makes you, that's how movies work, right? It's the same thing in real life. You create a sense of, you don't know who I am, but it has to be subtle. It's not like you're not Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You're not half evil and half button-down banker. You're 95% banker and you're 2 or 3 or 4% of this other thing. It's a little peak of something else that intrigues, that creates a fantasy element, okay? Now, how a woman could sense that that is a tactic, it comes back down to that nonverbal element. Or the other thing is analyze what it is that's intriguing you, what it is that's making you think about the person. So from the woman's point of view, the ability to stand back and analyze the situation instead of getting immediately rushing in emotionally is probably the best thing overall for the whole thing that we're talking about today. So creating a wound, creating a need for you is what a classic seducer will do. So that's one of the more evil tactics, I don't deny that. In the pickup artist world, they have the thing called negging, negative, where you tell the woman something negative about them. That creates a kind of a wound in them that gives you now room to now your next step is sort of kind and interested in them, but they're feeling like they want to kind of satisfy what you were criticizing. You're pinpointing a vulnerability that they have, something that's missing in their life, and you're going to be the one that provides it. So if you actually create the need in them by something you say, and then you're the one to satisfy it, it's a very, very potent seduction technique.